Thank you to coming to the YouTube channel. This video is about my arrow setup. I want to give a disclaimer, and people are probably going to shit on me in the comments. I don't care. But I wanted to explain why I started making my own arrows, what I make, why I make that, and why I am not going to listen to anybody else when it comes to making arrows. So I want to give an example of arrows that I had made from shields. I bought 12 arrows, and they are gold tip Hunter Pro 340 spine. This one's broken, but it's just an example. 340 spine. And in fact, I'm actually going to find a different one that's not broken real quick. See if I took that one apart. Yeah, I'll use this one as an example. So, gold tip, Hunter Pro, 340 spine. I want to say that I don't think that gold tip, like this video is not to shit on gold tip. I think that they have been around for a long time. I'm not exactly sure, but I remember, I think my dad has always shot gold tips. And they're a very popular arrow. When it comes to like spine and everything, that might be a different story, because I know that a lot of people kind of swear by more upper end arrows than gold tip. But I don't think that this is going to be a bad arrow for anybody. The problems that I ran into when I went to go and get these made. And another disclaimer, I just went to Shields to get my gold tip arrows made, and that's where I failed. I should have gone to a pro shop. But this negative experience helped me start to understand what I was shooting and how to better myself as an archer. So, I don't remember the length of these. I think it's around 27 inches. I don't remember. I think they're actually shorter than my arrows. Yeah, by a tiny amount, not even very much. Maybe a quarter inch. Anyway, but I spent a decent amount of money to have Shields make me these arrows. The multiple things that I can come across that I did not like about these, whenever I had shot these into targets, a really cheap target, I would pull these out of the target and the inserts would just pop out inside of the target. Lost some field points, and I lost some inserts because of that. I'm sure that I could have dug them out of the target, but that's a pain in the ass. And I wasted money. That's how I feel about these arrows. I wasted money on these gold tips. And again, that's not to shit on gold tip, but another thing that I was researching into. Now, don't take me as the type of person, even though I am kind of like getting into the weeds of it. I went down the rabbit hole of this specific research, but I live in Colorado, and I mainly do elk hunting. That's the majority of my hunting time is for elk. This year I'm going to go out and hunt some whitetail and hopefully get my first whitetail out in Indiana with my dad. And I grew up with my dad being a whitetail hunter. I grew up in Indiana. So that's where the bread and butter of my knowledge comes from with hunting. My dad shoots, well, I don't know about what he shoots right at this moment. He probably has a different spine and grain arrow. I don't know. I'll have to check it when I get out there. But my dad used to shoot this gold tip 340 spine through the Matthews Creed XS. And for out there, that's very adequate for what you're doing for whitetail hunting, as long as you have good, good accuracy, shot placement. But let me check the grains on this real quick, because I want to give an example of how heavy these arrows are. And honestly, I think that they're a little bit light for whitetail hunting too, right at 400 grains. So I think that's with a 100 grain tip, and that would go for, you know, the broadhead that you put on the tip of it. And then straight fletchings, which just come standard with, you know, gold tip arrows. The problem that I have found, like my dad came out and hunted with me. And to be completely honest, with what he had, I actually think that he was not prepared for elk hunting. I was not prepared for elk hunting for the first couple years. And, you know, not that I don't think that we could have killed something, but it just wasn't adequate for what we expected to be able to hunt for. If we had a shot, we would have been lucky to kill an elk. And again, for whitetail hunting, this arrow system is likely adequate enough and is adequate enough. My dad has killed multiple whitetail, a lot of whitetail with that bow and with this arrow. But you do run into issues. The research that I was looking into is about arrow penetration, and I'm not, I went down the ranch fairy rabbit hole. And before anybody starts bashing me about listening to the ranch fairy, the thing is I'm brand new to hunting and I want the best odds of being able to kill something. I don't want to listen to everybody else that is kind of like when you're talking on a car repair forum. People are going to have their opinions about literally everything and anything under the sun. And most of those people are going to be wrong. That's sort of how I feel about anything that I take on today, especially with archery. There's not a lot of research and science behind what, you know, us hunters talk about ethical kills or being an ethical hunter. And I think that we lose sight of the arrows, the broadheads that we're using. We will pay thousands of dollars to build a bow and have all of the best clothes that, you know, all the KUIU stuff to match our bow and everything else. And we, you know, have the correct posture, the right exact form for shooting a bow, but we skip putting adequate amount of research and money into our arrow setup. That's what I want to talk about. The way that you kill an animal ethically as a hunter is to puncture both lungs all the way through, like a complete pass through of the arrow through both lungs, or hit the heart, hit the vitals, and to not hit bone, right? I think that most hunters would agree with that. The problem with a lot of the hunters, especially the ones that are from the Midwest that don't do their research and they're using their arrow setup from whitetail deer coming to elk, is that they think about a gun. If you use a gun that's adequate to kill a whitetail deer, why would you use that same gun to come out and hunt elk with? And I'm sure that a lot of people would understand what I'm talking about. Why wouldn't you do the same with an arrow? It's the same concept. You have a lighter amount of grains because you're wanting to get to the animal quicker. You're taking out all of the other factors and you're doing yourself a disservice. I don't believe that this is an adequate arrow for elk hunting, especially when you throw, I don't even have one on the table right now, but especially when you throw a mechanical on there. That's not adequate in my mind for elk hunting. This is my arrow setup. There's a lot of different factors in this arrow setup, but this is made for penetration in mind and to completely get through the animal. Also, if it happens to hit a heavy, tight bone. I think that we need to start taking this more into consideration, especially with pro shops. I understand that there are people that work at pro shops that will make an arrow fit for whoever's coming in to get the arrows made. And while I understand why they do that, I think that people need to, I just think that people need to do their own research. I really think that's all it comes down to. We need to be more ethical hunters and to skip over the importance of your arrow setup. You skimp on the spending money on the arrow setup because you spent so much on your bow. I think that's a big detriment to the hunting community. I think that also perpetuates the idea of anti-hunters talking shit about hunters. Like, truly, I think that it all comes down to this. You can be as accurate of a shot as possible, but if your arrow setup is not going to be adequate enough to kill the animal when shit hits the fan, you're doing yourself, the animal, and everybody a disservice, and it actually, I think it makes you look bad. But yeah, this arrow, just as an example, the other gold tip was a 400 grain arrow, tip to tip. This is 641 grains. And I need to test out the FOC on this, but it's a pretty high FOC. I have a 100 grain insert with sleeve system on here with a 200 grain broadhead. I think the reason why most people shy away from maybe making their own arrows or specifically going with a 2-blade broadhead like this is it is a little bit more difficult to tune. Now, on the contrary, and this is just from my own personal experience, I was getting horrible arrow placement whenever I was shooting targets, even with my gold tips. Just because it is a good name doesn't mean that it's going to shoot good out of your bow. Your bow needs to be tuned properly. If your bow's not tuned properly and you're shooting a shit arrow or an arrow that's not flying properly, you're going to lose a lot of energy in that. That's another video that I'm going to make here in a minute. But just do yourself a favor, not just with your bow, but with your arrow set up too. Do your own research and understand what you're getting yourself into. And don't just take somebody else's word for it, please. Take the time to tune your bow and to tune your arrows, and you are going to become a better archer. I think, I think what every archer should do is actually make their own arrows. Whether you make a heavy arrow like this is for my elk hunting, and I will use it for deer hunting too. And I think a lot of people bet, what are you doing, trying to kill an elephant? It doesn't fucking matter what I'm trying to kill. I wanted to get through the animal if it hits dense bone. It'll go through a whitetail, no problem. Yeah, it's gonna be shooting slower, but I'm not shooting beyond 40 or 50 yards. That's just me, and I'm also brand new to this. Why would I shoot beyond that? Anyway, make your own arrows. I think this tool right here, the mod saw, will do amazing for you. You can get arrows like the gold tips and even with the straight fletch so that you don't have to worry about fletching the arrows, because that costs a little bit of money too. But this tool right here will do wonders. I think that everybody that shoots archery should get into understanding how to tune their bows, even if you can't tune your own bow, but to understand how to tune your specific bow. And I think that everybody should learn how to make arrows. It's taught me so much. And I think it's going to make me a better archer in the end. So, anyway, thank you for watching the video, and I'll see you on the next one.